Hello everybody, and welcome to another road video. This one's entitled Duff, Davis Creek, White Oak, Tackett Creek, Anthras, and Eagan. We're going up Duff Road. If we'd turned right there, we'd have gone up on McLeod Mountain. And one of these days I'm going to try to do a video of the road up to McLeod's Mountain. Almost didn't get that out. Having me a cup of coffee as we travel along. This is the Duff Road. Now we're in the mountains of East Tennessee, if you're not familiar with this area. In fact, this complete video is going to be in the mountains of East Tennessee. And I'm going to take you to the place where I was born. And another place on up the road where I lived when my family moved back to this area after the Second World War ended. Excuse me. And as I do all of my videos, they're kind of informal. That's the best way, I guess, to do them, especially if you're doing a long video like this one. There's not a lot I can tell you about this area other than this road goes off of Highway 25W. On my Jellicoe Road video I did, I showed you where the Y was, where we cut on Duff Road. To the right is the Duff Baptist Church. Brother Don Allen is the pastor there, a friend of mine, who I've known for a few years. If you've never been in this part of the country, if you're ever in East Tennessee, you can find this on the map. Just easy. It's Duff Road. And we're on our way to White Oak. This road will go into Davis Creek Road up here a few miles. The temperature today was hovering around 28 and 29 degrees. When I came up through here, I think it was 28 degrees. And then when I finished the video and I was on my way back, I came back a different route. The temperature had gone up to around 32 degrees. And it's approximately 11:30 or 12 o'clock when I came through here doing this video. I always like to hear from people who live up in this area, and as I go by, if you see your house, let me know on a comment. Most of my comments on my road videos comes through my Facebook account. My Facebook account I've mentioned this before, I try to keep separate from my YouTube life. Most of the Facebook stuff is just family and friends and people I know here locally. I'm sure I have some YouTube friends who have filtered in onto my Facebook, but as a general rule, I keep them separate. I pulled over here to let a truck go by. Of course, he only goes about a half a mile down there and turns left into his driveway, so I guess he lives down there, whoever that is. If you happen to know whoever it is in that truck, tell them that you saw him on the Duff Road on a Saturday, the 16th of February. 2013. As I said, it's either 11:30 or 12 o'clock. Now, Duff Road goes off to the left. Now we're on Davis Creek, unless I'm completely turned around. I'm sure if I'm calling these roads something that they aren't, somebody will let me know. But I think this is Davis Creek. Anyway, that's what it says on Google Maps. And I was on so many different areas, I wanted to make sure today that I had the roads correct. This portion is sparsely populated. There's one spot on this road, and when we get to it, I'll show you where it's at. And for whatever the reason, when I came through here with my mom and dad when I was a young child, that one spot on this road always stood out in my mind, and I have no earthly idea why. We're in this little valley. Someone's got their horses there off to the right. This is a county road, and we're on Davis Creek Road. You see a lot of satellite dishes because it was almost next to impossible to get television up in here. So when those big satellites came out, quite a few people up in this area had them. Most everybody now has just the small satellite dishes. But you can see how sparsely populated this portion is. I don't know why. I just don't know why. Unless it's the lay of the land. At one time, when strip mining was big in White Oak, this road right here had a lot of traffic, coal trucks. But that's about gone now in this part of the country. When we get to White Oak, you'll see where they had some strip mines. When I came through there back when the strip mine was operating, they had a lot of equipment in there digging coal. The area has been reclaimed now, and it's pretty up there. There's a lake. I'll show you a lake that was formed from strip mining. A beautiful lake. It looks like it's clear. And that'll be at White Oak. This road eventually will run into White Oak Road. Part of the map calls it White Oak Road, and part of the map calls it Little White Oak. And I have no idea why that is. You can see how remote it is back here. Anybody that likes the wide open spaces, this is the place to live. And it's beautiful year round. You can imagine in the fall what it's like up through here. I have never done a video on this road before. maybe one of these times in the spring or fall I'll backtrack and do another video, because it is pretty through here in the fall. And this is a county road we're on. It's maintained by the county. I was going to show you the place that stands out in my mind, but like before, sometimes I get in a big way of talking and forget what I said I was going to do. I slow down here, I'm checking my camera. I had reset the settings on it, and I was afraid that I had taken it off of the XP mode, which I always use for high definition, but I checked it and it was working the way it's supposed to. This is remote back in here. If you check it out on the Google map, you can tell that this is back in the mountains. I'm trying to figure out some way to rig me up a shield for my, we're coming into some populated area now. I'm trying to figure out a way to figure out how to make a shield that will shield my viewing screen until the wind will not close it, and then that way I can put the camera back out on my hood of the car, and that way I can get rid of some of the glare that I pick up off the windshield. But I'm going to have to figure out something on that, because the last time I tried to use this camera, the wind kept blowing it shut, and then, you know, it cut the video off. Now we're back out into some area that is kind of desolate out here. You can tell we're back in the mountains. Of course, that's where I was born, back in the mountains. You wait till you see where I was born. Not a lot of traffic on this road. Take me another drink of coffee. I think off to the left there probably was a place where they stripped some coal. From here on up through White Oak, we'll be running into a lot of area that was stripped. I don't know how many tons of coal that was extracted from this area, but a lot of it. I think there to the left. People who live up in here, they know exactly where these strip areas were at. I don't. I was up in here plenty times when the strip mine was... Okay, here's the place I was telling you about. When I think of this road, this curve right here, is the most memorable, if that's a word, memorable place on this road from when I was a small boy riding with my dad. And why I have no idea why that place stands out in my mind. We're going back in the mountains. White Oak is a pretty good sized community. My dad used to go to a commissary that was operated by the coal company there at White Oak, and there's a mine down to the right. When we get there, I'll show you. I'd like to go down there and find where that mine is at, because one time I went with my dad, and I believe he showed me where that entry was to that mine. Now we're coming, all this area here was strip mining. Now these two roads join, and I'm thinking that we are now off of Davis Creek coming on to White Oak and Little White Oak, and I turned the car there so you can see where the strip mines were. But this whole area in here was just loaded with coal. And they extracted all the coal from this area. I think a lot of people come up in this area to ride four-wheelers. I didn't see any today, but one time I was up through here and I saw quite a few. But all this area right here was stripped. It was loaded. There was a huge seam of coal. And I've kind of turned to try to show you over there where it was stripped. I had a couple of friends who were big in strip mining in this area. I was up here one time with one of them. I think he had a job going off to the right of this road, and I went up there with him one day and watched the equipment work. And according to the map, we're on White Oak Road. I don't know exactly where it's considered to be the community of White Oak. When we get down here and we start seeing houses, we'll start calling it White Oak. Excuse my drinking my coffee. And there's one of those lakes that was formed. And off to the right all the way up, I think the one I was telling you about, that I went up there with a friend of mine who was a strip miner. I think he had a job maybe up that valley, I don't know. It's been a long time ago. But you can see how beautiful this country is, and that lake over there. It looks clear. And probably is, because it's fed by spring water, I'm sure. And probably clean as it can be. I'm sure it's on private land. All this land up here is privately owned. I don't know who owns most of this land. I've got a good idea, but I don't want to say. There's a substation there for electricity. It's a pretty good sized place. They've been installing metal transmission lines in and around the county. We're getting close to Claiborne County, and when we go to Eagan, Eagan is in Claiborne County. It's just right across the line. Okay, now I'm going to start calling this White Oak. Up here shortly, we'll start running into a lot of houses. And that's White Oak. We're going to come out on Highway 90. I'd like to do a video specifically of Highway 90 starting at Morley and take it all the way up as far as I could across the mountain into Middlesboro. I don't know how long that would take, but we'll see. If I get a chance to do that, I'll do it. And you see quite a few houses coming up here at White Oak. Beautiful day, temperature around 28 or 29 degrees. Forecasting rain and snow for the higher elevations tonight. As I've mentioned before, we don't have a lot of snow in this area. You would think that we would or do, but we don't. Occasionally we will get a big snow, but it's not a common occurrence in this area. They get a little more snow up here on White Oak than we do down in La Follette because of the elevation. It looks level here, but it's kind of misleading because we are at a higher altitude. Hope you can't hear my stomach growling. I'm just sitting here enjoying the scenery with you. I never did live at White Oak. Been through here umpteen times with my family when we lived up in here. Up here shortly we'll come out on Highway 90, which goes up through Anthras and Eagan and goes across the mountain into Middlesboro, Kentucky. During the war, I can remember my uncle talking about Middlesboro Mountain. I think is either a B-17 or a B-25. They must have gotten iced up and they flew into the side of that mountain during the Second World War. And I can remember my uncle talking about going up there. There's a road crew up here. I don't know if they had a tree fall or if they're just trimming from the transmission lines, but they had a mulcher here on the right hand. It's a mulcher there, they're putting the limbs in. I wonder if that guy will see himself on the internet. This is White Oak, and we're getting ready to come out on Highway 90. Someone operates a kind of a mini-mart grocery store there on the right. And this is Highway 90. We're going to turn right. And we'll be going right through the middle of White Oak. There's the White Oak Church of God that we just passed on the right. I want to show you a place up here that my family used to come to a company-owned store to purchase groceries, and that building right there I can remember from when I was a kid. It's been there for years. Some of these houses have been here that long, but I can't remember them. Most of them have been upgraded. Coming up on the right is where a company-owned store was, and down below there, because they had a place there where they called it a bathhouse, where the miners would come in and take a bath right here. That's where it was at, right there. Came there many times with my mother and dad. My wife, I think she had gone there with her family a few times. We're coming down from White Oak into Tacket Creek. At one time, not too long ago, there was a big coal deep mine, and there was a railroad went across this road, and they pulled a couple of long coal trains out of there each day. But now that mine has closed, and I believe the railroad track has been closed. I don't think the railroad track exists anymore. We'll see when we get down here. I can't really remember, and when I was up here doing this video, I had that on my mind and I forgot about it. So we'll rediscover it together. You can tell that this road, it's kind of scary in a way. You know, if you went off of that, if somebody ran you off the road, your car would probably roll for a mile down through there into that valley. There's people that drive this every day that probably never think about it. It's just second nature. And the only reason that I was thinking about it, because I had not been up here in a while, so it was like something new. I hadn't been up here in at least 3 years, I'd say. we're coming down into Tacket Creek. Now there's a school down here. During the war, I walked from Anthras to that school at Tacket Creek to pick up rationing stamps until our family could get their allotment of sugar or whatever it was. And my sister went to school there in that school at Tacket Creek for 1 year, I think. Okay, that railroad went across the road down here just before you go across the bridge. There's a railroad sign there. The sign is still there, but the railroad is gone. So they've taken it out. To the right there is where that school was at, and we would walk from that area. That may not be the exact spot, but it's close enough. And we would walk. I walked with my mother because the next community that we're going to come to is Anthras, where I was born. And I would walk from Anthras to Tacket Creek with my mother to get rationing stamps during the Second World War. When I was born at Anthus, it was a thriving coal community. They called them coal camps. And I'm going to point to the general direction of the house where I was born. And if you are not from this area and you've been following me anytime on YouTube, you're going to be surprised to find out where I was born. When I come up here, I get the weirdest feeling because this little road right here was a dirt road. That's the Anthras Baptist Church there in the distance, and it's been there. It was there when I was born, and it's survived. You can see the creek there to the left. I used to think that creek was running to your left, from the left to the right, but it's running right to left. Why I had it going the other direction, I don't know. Now, the road, there was a railroad was on to the right-hand side, and the road that goes up the hill, this friend of mine had a tipple down there, and I think he built a special road. But I'm going to point the car straight down through there where all that thicket of trees was where I was born. And we moved from there to another house on down at the end of this road, but I know that road dead ends down there, and I didn't want to go down there and get in somebody's driveway and them trying to figure out who I was. If the road had gone on through, I'd have went on down through there, but I didn't want to get down there into a dead end, which would be right where we moved to when we moved from the place that I just showed you where all the trees were at. Oh, how many times have I been up through this road with my family? My mom and dad are gone. My dad was born in 1893. He passed away in 62. My mother lived to be in her 80s. My dad was a lot older than my mother. But most of all my uncles. It's kind of nostalgic being up in here. In one way, I like to come up here. In another way, I don't. This is the CSX Railroad that we're going across. They use that railroad. I don't know if there's tipples up in here now where they dump coal. Could be. So they probably run a coal train. When I lived up here, it was a steam train that went up through there. And there was a switching area, and the track would run down into Anthras, but that railroad track is no longer over there in Anthras. And the next place is Eagan. When my family moved to Oak Ridge during the Second World War, after the war ended, we moved to Eagan, and I went to the 4th grade at Eagan. And the first Bible school that I ever went to, I'm going to pull into the parking lot of the church. It's the Eagan Baptist Church. And I'm wanting to say that was in 1947, I believe, that I went to Bible school there. First time I ever went to Bible school. There's an Eagan sign. And I'm going to show you where we lived in two different areas up here in Eagan, and I'll show you where they are. The approximate location. Now, one of the houses looks like an old house. I'm not sure that that's the house we lived in, so I'm not going to definitively say that that's where I lived, although I can tell you that's exactly the spot in that area where I lived. The sickest I ever was in my life was over here in Eagan. I was walking out of the commissary one day, and some boys were seining for minnows, and they asked me if I wanted to help, and, to be one of the guys. I said, sure, like I knew what I was doing. One of them said, you want to chew a tobacco? I said, yeah, give me a chew. He had what they call Red Ox Twist. I got me a big chew of that and started seining those minnows, or seining minnows. And I've never been so sick in my life. I'd never had a chew of tobacco in my life. That's called peer pressure. We go across the creek here. I'm almost thinking that we used to drive through the creek getting over here back when I lived up here, but I can't remember. This building on the right-hand side is, that one right there, is now a museum, but that's the old school. I went to the 4th grade at that school. That white building up there at the end of the road was where the commissary was at, company-owned commissary. And they have two roads because you couldn't get under the track here. There's just I had forgotten that this was that low. It's only 8 feet 4 inches high. There's the little branch where those guys were seining minnows, and straight ahead was what they call the Y, and they had movies there. I can remember walking down there, and I saw Flash Gordon cereal for the first time right there in that spot. And I lived either from this driveway to where I turned. Our house, I think our house sat right here across that little creek. And then later on, we moved up the road. Now this is Log Mountain Road. If you go on up that road, right there at the bend of the curve, there was a house that sat on the left-hand side, and that's where we lived for a while. This is in the mountains. There's a graveyard up on the hill to the left. I don't know if you can see it as we come out. There it is, straight ahead, up on the hill, through those trees. We used to play cowboys and Indians up there in that graveyard. I think I pulled the car around there a little bit. You can see those gravestones up there. But this is where I spent a lot of my childhood, here at Eagan. And it's kind of a strange feeling coming up in here. When you think back, of course I lived here after the Second World War, down there at Anthras. I was born there in 1938. And have been in this part of the world most of my life, other than what time I was in the military and what time I spent over in North Carolina, which North Carolina is a place I loved. That house there, that's where the commissary was at. And to the left here in that field, they played baseball. All of these mining camps had baseball teams, and people would sit around in the grass. I've often thought if you had a treasure finder, you could probably find coins down there, but if it's been graded out, I'd say that, and it looks like it's been graded out. Well, that's it. See you. Hope you enjoyed that. Bye-bye.